Blue Stars Higher Secondary School welcomes you all to learn this lesson, the singing lesson, which was written by Catherine Mansfield. Now we are going to learn the author Kathleen Mansfield Murray. Her period 14th October 1888 to 9th January 1923. She was a prominent modernist writer of short fiction from New Zealand who wrote under the pen name of Catherine Mansfield. At the age of 14, she went to London to study at Queen's College. During the 3 years of studies, she often wrote short stories for the college journal, as she was dissatisfied with the dull and leisured life of her family. She went to London again in 1908 and determined on writing as a career. Since then, she lives mostly in England. In 1923, she died of tuberculosis (TB) in France. During her short 35 years of life, she had written some poems, literature comment, and also translated the Russian writer Anton Chekhov's works. But what really established her fame as a prominent writer were her short stories. Point of view. The story is told from limited third-person point of view. We see everything through the eyes of Miss Meadows. But she is not the narrator. We are limited to her thoughts, feelings, perceptions, etc. At first, upon reading this short story, you might think that it is describing a singing lesson in a music hall. That's because it actually is. One idea that is achieved by reading the singing lesson is that a teacher's personal life problems and issues can affect other aspects of her life, including how she acts towards others. Not only can she be affected but others as well. Here in this lesson, Miss Meadow is the teacher of the singing lesson. She is expressed as being despairing and depressed, all because of a letter she had received from her fiancé, the person she is supposed to be marrying. While the girls around her in the hall are fluttery and lively, it can be seen that the way she acts compared to them is more sad and depressed. This is an example of contrast. By purposely implementing this contrast between characters, Catherine Mansfield is showing Miss Meadow as a symbol of isolation and despair. Along with the contrast of moods, there is also a contrast of discourse, which shows the difference in traits that human beings have. Miss Meadow is bitter and has hatred, while the science mistress is a symbol of artificiality. The setting shows that Miss Meadow's state of mind could be mournful, which would be represented by the music hall. The song with which she chooses to sing illustrates that she is not in the best of moods, while later in the story at the end she chooses to sing a song more blissful. You can tell the way in which the class acts and the motioning Miss Meadow makes that she is disrupted by a thought of something. The thought affects the way in which she is teaching. Basically, the singing lesson is about how the manner in which moods change due to external events. This is obvious when she receives the telegram from her fiancé. The contents of the letter are considered to be heartbreaking to the point where it has the power to influence the mood not only Miss Meadow but everyone in the music hall as well. This short story reveals how Catherine Mansfield feels about human grief on everyone, not just the person doing the grieving. Emphasis on impressionism can be seen because we perceive that Miss Meadow is sad or grieving over something that had happened. In a way, this piece could be fragmented because it goes from narrator to having actual quotes from the period in which it takes place. Stream of consciousness. The story also shows a lot of stream of consciousness because it shows Miss Meadow's thoughts with which she feels. Compare the use of stream of consciousness in the story and Miss Brill. Style. Mansfield short stories showed great ingenuity. She drew materials from her own experience, chose trifles as her subjects. Her theme was confined but significant to life: the growth and self consciousness of the female, the relation between men and women, children's innocence, and the cruelty of the reality. She pursued high writing techniques, the four of which were description of details, more atmosphere than plot, and the perfect blend of feeling and setting, interior monologue, symbol. Her language was written in a prose style spiced with poetic flavor. Short summary of this lesson. The singing lesson was a short story that explained how Miss Maddo's thought disrupted her teaching to her class in the music hall. Miss Maddo showed hatred for the science misses and expressed herself in a negative way. This was due to a letter she had received. The letter said that the guy she was marrying didn't love her. This was on her mind the whole day until she received a telegram saying that she needs not to pay attention to the letter that was written earlier. Her fiancé explains how he must have been mad when he wrote the letter. After finding out this news, she no longer acts mad and instead shows a cheery side. Some of the warm-up exercises given here. What are all the factors that influence our moods? Unfulfillment of our ambition, lack of recognition, disappointment, being sidelined, rejection, betrayal. How do you behave under the spells of different moods? Under the spell of different moods, I remain absolutely calm. I never exhibit any trace of agitation or aggression. I ponder over the reasons that influence my moods and do not react on the spur of the moment. This keeps the situation under my control. Do you think it is important not to be swayed away by every passing mood? Yes, it is important not to be swayed away by every passing mood. We cannot judge a person or analyze a situation in a minute or two. By studying the circumstances under which we are made to respond angrily, we can prevent our reactions. Postponing reaction is the best means of unnecessary flare-ups. Suggest some ways by which we can maintain a calm temperament under all circumstances. We must remember that all are not honest all the time. Our character possesses both strengths and weaknesses. If we remember this, we can understand the action or reaction of the people whom we come into contact with. A sense of empathy will make us maintain a calm temperament. The singing lesson, written by Catherine Mansfield, is all about a surprising day of a music teacher's life. Taken from Catherine's The Garden Party and Other Stories collection. It's a short story written in third person from an unknown narrator's perspective. Miss Maddox, a music teacher, she receives a letter from her fiancé which states quite plainly that Basil, that fiancé's name, Basil, her fiancé, is not ready to marry her and feels that the marriage would fill him with disgust. The word disgust is scratched lightly and written above regret. So he had written it as disgust, then he scratched it lightly, then he rewrite the word regret. Naturally, she is filled with despair, anger and sadness. And due to her bad mood, she sees everyone and everything in a negative light. Her usual calm and happy mood turns gloomy and angry that day, and this change doesn't go unnoticed by her students. During the lesson, she is rather harsh with her students. She tells them that today they would be practicing a lament without any expression at first. Each stanza, each word, each breath seems like a sob or groan and lament to her gloomy mind. Then she tells them that they must feel the despair, the pain and the sorrow in order to perform the piece perfectly. They are rather frightened by the sudden change in her behavior. She gets a call from the headmistress, Miss Wyatt. When she meets the headmistress in her room, she hands over a telegram to Miss Maddox. It's from her fiancé. It clearly asks her to forget the previous letter. She is very happy to receive the telegram and comes back to the class in a happy mood. Now she selects a new lesson. We come here today with flowers overladen with baskets of fruits and ribbons to boot. To congratulate, a cheerful song, singing with expressions more loudly and cheerfully. Now, we are going to learn the lesson in detailed manner. The singing lesson. This story explained how a music teacher, Miss Meadows' attitude disrupted her teachings to her class students when she was in a sharp despair. Miss Meadows, music teacher, trod towards the music hall through the cold corridor. She was filled with deep despair caused by her fiancé's letter. It was like a wicked knife. She was in cap and gown, carried a little baton. Girls of all ages, cheerful, active, with joyful sensation, were coming to school on a fine morning of autumn season. They rushed over, moved by hopping, moved irregularly to reach the hollow classrooms. They were calling out to one another. School bell rang. Someone called loudly as Muriel in a voice like a bird. There was a tremendous sound from the staircase. Someone had dropped her dumbbells. Dumbbells, it's an musical instrument. The science mistress interrupted Miss Meadows in the midway and wished her good morning in her sweet and slow way of talking. She asked her whether it was very cold and told it might be winter. Miss Meadows was already hugging the knife. She was filled with despair because of her fiancé's letter. She stared in hatred at the science mistress. She hated her especially for her sweetness, her beauty. She would not have been surprised if a bee was caught in the twisted yellow hair of the science mistress. Then Miss Meadows replied that the coldness was quite sharp. With a sugary smile, the science mistress commented that Miss Meadows looked frozen. When her blue eyes opened wide, there was a mocking light came from the eyes. Miss Meadows gave her a quick expression of disgust and replied that it was not quite as bad as that. Then she walked down to the class. The students of 4th, 5th and 6th forms, that means the students under the age group between 14 and 16, as per the old system of education in New Zealand, were assembled in the music hall. They were making noise by talking with each other. Miss Basil, the favorite of Miss Meadows. So she is Miss Basil. She is a best friend of Miss Meadows. She was coming. She would play accompaniments while turning the music tool. She saw Miss Meadows was coming. She gave a loud warning to the girls to be silent. She is warning the students, be silent, like that. Miss Meadows walked down the center passage of the hall, her hands thrust in her sleeves. She held the baton under her arm. She mounted the steps and turned sharply. Then she quickly took the brass music stand and placed it in front of her. She gave 2 sharp signals with the baton to indicate for a silence. She told the girls to be silent. It seemed that the girls had worn a sea of colored flannel blouses. They had worn decorative butterfly style bows in their hair. The music books were scattered widely. She knew what the girls were thinking. Maddie, the music teacher, was in a wax, that means a fit of anger. She admitted that they could think whatever way they liked. Her eyelids trembled. She lifted her head. She imagined on the thoughts of those creatures when someone who stood there bleeding to death and pierced to the heart by such a letter, which was written by her fiancé Basil. So, Basil felt very strongly that his marriage with Miss Meadows would be a mistake. It didn't mean that he didn't love her. He loved her as much as it was possible for him to love any woman. But in fact, He had come to a conclusion that he was not a marrying man. The idea of settling down filled him with nothing but regret. It was clearly seen that the word disgust was scratched out lightly and the word regret was written over the top. Miss Meadows walked over the piano. Mary Beazle was waiting for the moment. She bent forward, her curls fell over her cheeks, while she breathed the words, "Good morning, Miss Meadows," to her. She moved towards her and handed over a beautiful yellow flower, chrysanthemum. This little ritual of giving a flower had been carried over forever. This routine act became a part of the lesson as of opening the piano. Miss Meadows would usually accept that flower from Mary Beazle. Then she would tuck it into her belt and would thank and greet her that it was very nice and ask her to turn page 32. But on that day, to Mary's horror, she totally ignored that flower given by Mary and made no reply to her greeting. She didn't say any good morning to her, but instead of that, she told her to turn page 14 and mark the accents. It was a shocking moment for Mary Beazle. She felt embarrassed and the tears stood in her eyes. But Miss Meadows went back to the music stand. Her voice rang through the music hall. She told the girls to turn page 14. They would begin with the music lesson, a lament. It was a sorrowful, tragic song. So it will bring surely the sadness to the face of the children. Miss Meadows instructed the girls that they ought to know the song by that time and they should take the song all together and not in parts. She further told that they should sing the song quite simply, beating time with their left hand without any expression. Miss Meadows raised the baton and tapped the music stand twice. Mary began the song on the opening chord. Immediately all other girls' left hands beat the air. They started to sing in chimmed, young, mournful voices. Fast, too fast, fade the roses of pleasure. Soon autumn yields unto winter dearer fleetly. Fleetly music's gay measure passes away from the listening ear. Miss Meadows thought that there could not be more tragic than that lament. Every note was a sigh, a sob, a cry of horrible mournfulness. She lifted her arms in the white gown and began conducting with both hands. Again Basil's letter came into her memory. He felt more and more strongly that their marriage would be a mistake. She beat and the voices of the girls cried as fleetly, fleetly, again the interference of her thoughts on Basil. What could have possessed him to write such a letter? What could have led up to it? It came out of nothing. His last letter has been all about a fumed oak bookcase he had purchased. He elaborated on a natty little stand which had a carved owl on a bracket, holding 3 hat brushes in its claw. She smiled and wondered about the need of 3 hat brushes. In the music class, the girls sang the next line from the listening ear. Miss Meadows asked the girls to repeat their singing. She told them to sing in parts in the second time and still without expression, in a fast and too fast beat. She instructed that when a state of melancholy or depression of the lowest female voice was added, one could hardly help shivering. Then came the next line of the song, "Fade the roses of pleasure." Again Miss Meadows went back to her thoughts. On the previous occasion when Basil had come to see her, he had worn a rose in his buttonhole. He had looked handsome in that bright blue shirt with the dark red rose. First he caressed his hair, then his moustache. When he smiled, his teeth appeared like a flash of light. Miss Maddox remembered her last meeting with Basil. He told her that the headmaster's wife regularly invited him for a dinner. He felt it was a nuisance and he never went to that place in any evening. When Miss Maddox asked him why he couldn't refuse her, he told that a man in his position would become unpopular if he had done so. By this time, the girl sang a line, music's gay measure, in a high-pitched voices. One could see the willow trees which were outside through the high, narrow windows of the classroom. The tree branches moved in the wind. They withered half their leaves. The extremely small leaves were swinging like fishes. Miss Maddox suddenly remembered a line from Basil's letter. He was not a marrying man. The voices of the girls became silent and the piano waited. Miss Maddox appreciated the girls' singing was quite good. But the younger girls began to feel frightened by her strange and stony tone. She continued her instructions that they should practice it with expression. They could give maximum expression. They should think about the words and should use their imaginations. Then she sang the line fast, too fast. She further gave instructions on how to sing in a musical tone, strong musical tone, a lament. In the second line, they should utter the word drear, as if a cold wind were blowing through it. She voiced the word drear, and it made Mary Basil wriggled her spine. In a similar way, she instructed how to sing the remaining lines. Then she asked them to continue. Miss Maddox gave 2 light taps with a baton and she lifted her arms again. She sang the line. He had written in his letter that the idea of settling down filled him with nothing but disgust. He had first written the word disgust, then he wrote the word regret over the top. Their engagement was indefinitely broken off when the people knew that she had got engaged. They had been surprised at first. The science mistress could not believe that. She was so surprised that nobody could. She was 30 years old and Basil was 25 years old. It had been a miracle, simply a miracle. Then they walked home from church on that very dark night. On the way, he told her that he had got fond of her, somehow or other. He had taken hold of the end of her ostrich feather decorative scarf. Suddenly, she heard the girl's voice singing the line, passes away from the listening ear. Miss Maddox told the girls to repeat the line with more expression. The girls started singing the line, fast, too fast. The older girls were crimson, red in their faces, and some of the younger ones began to cry because they were not able to bear it up. Big spots of raindrops blast against the windows. One could hear the willow trees whispering. Again, Basil's letter came to her mind. It didn't mean that he didn't love her. Miss Maddox thought of telling Basil that if he loved her, she would not mind how much it was, but he could love her as little as he would like. However, she knew that he didn't love her. He even didn't care enough to scratch out the word disgust completely, so that she could not read it in his letter. Now the girls were singing the line, soon autumn yields into winter drearer. She would like to leave the school forever. If the science masters and the girls knew about Basil's letter, then she could never face them. Somewhere she would not have to disappear. Her thoughts were disturbed by the girls. They were singing the lines, passes away. The voices began to die, to fade, to whisper, and at last to vanish. The classroom door opened suddenly, and a little girl in blue dress entered. She walked in the center passage of 2 rows, hanging her head, biting her lips, and twisting the silver bangle on her red little wrist. She came up the steps and stood before Miss Maddox. It seemed that Miss Meadows would have known the girl Monica. What's her name? Monica. She asked her what was that. Monica told her that Miss Weird, the headmistress, wanted to see her in her room. Miss Meadows turned to the girls and told them that she was going away and they should maintain their honor to talk quietly while she was away. But the girls were in a depressed mood and would not do anything. Most of them were blowing their noses. Miss Meadows walked down the corridors, which were silent and cold. Her steps were echoed by the corridors. The headmistress was sitting at her desk. She did not look up for a moment. Her eyeglasses were frequently got entangled with her lace tie. As usual, she was disentangling her eyeglasses. She said very kindly to Miss Meadows to sit down. Then she picked up a pink envelope from the blotting pad. She told her that a telegram had come for her and that was the reason to call her to her room. Miss Meadows surprised and asked Miss Weird whether the telegram was for her. Then she decided that the telegram would have the information that Basil had committed suicide. Her hand threw out the telegram, but Miss Weird held it back a moment. She told more than kindly that she hoped the telegram would not have bad news. So, Miss Meadows tore the envelope and opened. Basil had sent the telegram. He asked her not to pay any attention to his earlier letter. He would have been mad while writing that letter. He further informed that he had bought hat stand on that day. After reading the telegram, she couldn't take her eyes from it. Miss Weird said that she hoped there was nothing very serious. Miss Meadows' face turned red due to embarrassment, and she told Miss Weird that there was nothing bad at all. She gave an apologetic smile. She continued that it was from her fiancé, saying that she could not complete. There was a pause. Miss Weird understood her shyness and there was another pause. Then Miss Weird reminded her that she had 15 minutes more to continue her music class. Miss Meadows accepted headmistress' statement and got up. Then she half ran, halfway between walking and running towards her door. Miss Weird interrupted Miss Meadows and told her that she would not approve of her teachers to have telegrams in school hours. She would give exemption only to the telegrams with very bad news such as death or a very serious accident or something to that effect. Telegrams with the good news could always be kept after school hours. Miss Meadows felt as if she had wings of hope, of love, of joy. She sped back to the music hall, walking over the center passage and steps, reached the piano. She told Mary to turn page 32 for a happier song. So first of all, what page she had taken? Yes, page number 14 for a sad song, for a sorrowful song. Now she is asking the students to take page 32 for a happier song. And picked up the yellow flower chrysanthemum. She held it to her lips to hide her smile. Then she turned to the girls and tapped with her baton and told twice to turn page 32. The girls started to sing the happiest song in page 32. We come here today with flowers overladen, with baskets of fruit and ribbons to boot. Miss Meadows shouted at them to stop. She told them that it was horrible and dreadful, and she smiled at her girls and asked them what the matter was with them all. She continued and told them to think of what they were singing and also they had to use their imaginations. She sang the lines. Then she broke off with the emotions. She requested them not to look so sorrowful and the song ought to sound warm, joyful and eager. She asked them to sing once more in a quick way altogether, congratulate. And that time Miss Meadows' voice sounded over all the other voices full, deep, glowing with expression. So the mood of her teacher makes all the students very sorrowful one. Now we are going to learn the glossary which made us to understand this lesson very well. Baton, a thin stick used by a conductor of a music orchestra. Drawl, slow, lazy way of talking. Tangles, a confused mass, twisted. Grimace, expression of disgust on a person's face. Accompaniments, music played to support an instrument, voice or group. Contralto, the lowest female voice. Forte, a musical tone played loudly. Crescendo, a gradual increase in the loudness of a sound. Aisle, a passage between two rows of seats. Fiancé, a man to whom one is engaged to be married. Doleful, sorrowful. Based on your understanding of the story, answer the following questions in about 30 to 50 words each. What was the knife that Miss Meadows carried with her? Miss Meadows carried with her sharp despair. The author calls it a knife. What kind of relationship existed between Miss Meadows and the science mistress? Miss Meadows was jealous of the science mistress. She hated the science mistress. Why was Miss Meadows upset and dejected? Miss Meadows was upset and dejected because she had received a letter from her fiancé saying that he was not interested in marriage. How would Miss Meadows usually treat Mary? How did her behavior towards a girl change that day? Miss Meadows would usually treat Mary affectionately. Miss Meadows had totally ignored the flower Mary gave her that day. Why had Miss Meadows chosen a lament as the lesson that particular day? Miss Meadows had chosen a lament as a lesson that particular day because she was lamenting inside her heart. What brought agony to the girls during the music lessons? The attitude of Miss Meadows and the way she made the girls repeat the lessons brought agony to the girls. Bring out the substance of Basil's letter to Miss Meadows. Basil thought that the marriage between Basil and Miss Meadows would be a mistake. He thought that he was not for a married life. Settling down in married life would be a disgust for him. Why did Miss Wyatt summon Miss Meadows to her room? There was a telegram for Miss Meadows, so Miss Wyatt summoned Miss Meadows to her room to give the telegram. How did Miss Meadows express her joy when she returned to the music class? Miss Meadows' attitude changed. She selected a different song. We come here today with flowers overladen, with baskets of fruit and ribbons to boot, to congratulate. Briefly explain the cause of Miss Meadows' joy at the end. In the beginning of the story, Miss Meadows got a letter from her fiancé Basil that he was not willing to marry her, so she was upset. At the end of the story, she received a telegram from him asking her not to pay attention to the previous letter. That was the cause of Miss Meadows' joy at the end. Note the following words from the story. They all refer to different ways of walking. Find out their meanings and use each of them in meaningful sentences of your own. Refer your thesaurus and add a few more to the list. Trod. Put your foot on something while walking. She trod casually on the green grass. Fluttered. Move slightly like a bird. The little boy fluttered around the garden. Hurried. Walked fast. As he was late, he hurried to the railway station. Skipped. Walked with a slight jump. The girl skipped around the auditorium. Strode. Long step we make while walking. He strode towards the library. Sped. Moved fast. The car sped along the highway. Amble. Walk at a relaxed pace. The children ambled along the meadows. Ramble. Walk for pleasure. We spent the vacation rambling in the village. Hike. Go for a long walk. We will go hiking this Sunday and enjoy watching the birds. Stroll. Walk in a slow, relaxed way. The tourists are strolling along the garden. Parade. Walk in a formal group of people. The winning team will parade through the city tomorrow. Hobble. Walk with difficulty. The old man hobbled across the road. Saunter. Walk in a slow, relaxed way. The leader sauntered by watching the arrangements. Shuffle. Walk slowly without lifting your feet. I shuffled across the hall to the podium. Strut. To walk proudly. The winning captain strutted to the camera. Prowl. Walk around the room, especially because you are bored, anxious, etc. He prowled the empty rooms of the house at night. Mind map. Miss Meadows was upset over the letter. She remains gloomy and unhappy in the class. She taxes the students, making them repeat the lessons. She thinks of the letter from Basil, her fiancé. Basil seems to have lost interest in marriage. The girl senses her change of mood. Suddenly she is called by Miss Wyatt, the headmistress. The headmistress gave her a telegram which asked her to forget the previous letter. Miss Meadows feels happy and returns to the class with vigor and good cheer. A brief summary of the story. Now we are going to learn the paragraph questions. Describe Miss Meadows' mood before and after receiving the telegram. How did it affect the class? Miss Meadows was a music teacher of a school. She was walking towards a music class in despair. It hurt her like a sharp knife. With such a heavy heart, she entered the music class. Mary, who was playing the piano as usual, gave her a chrysanthemum flower. Normally, she would accept it happily, but that day she did not reveal any happiness. The girls who were ready to start the lesson sensed that Miss Meadows was not in her usual mood. She selected the lesson a lament and asked them to sing without expression. As they were singing, she thought of the unfortunate letter she had received from her fiancé, Basil. It said that he was not interested in marriage and it would be disgusting if he settled down in married life. The words were getting repeated in her mind. She asked the girls to repeat the lesson again and again. But the time she got a call from the headmistress, Miss Wyatt. When she went to the headmistress' room, she handed over a telegram to Miss Meadows. It was from her fiancé. It clearly asked her to forget the previous letter. She was very happy to receive the telegram and came back to the class in a happy mood. Now she selected a new lesson. We come here today with flowers overladen with baskets of fruit and ribbons to boot and congratulate. Next question. The only difference between a good day and a bad day is your attitude. Relate this to a real life experience you have had. Share your thoughts in class. A good day for me is when I am on the alert the whole time. I am able to think and rationalize everything in front of me with ease, speak in the best of manner, write with a flair, and complete my work on time, effectively and efficiently. A bad day is when I have been trying to work on something and my own brain has been blocking me. I have had to spend a lot of time with people who I find are annoying. I have been in physical discomfort, tired, sick, sunburned, blisters, sore muscles. I have been excessively lonely. I have been inexplicably cranky. But the above said explanation depends on my attitude. The same thing may be annoying or satisfying depending on my attitude. So the day is with us and we can make the day good or bad. One day I came to the class with my homework ready. But after reaching the class, I found my work wrong. The bad day started and it was annoying. The whole night I had been working on it, but now it was a waste. I thought somehow something would work out for me. So I was brushing aside all my negative thoughts. Within half an hour, there was an announcement on the public address system that all the students should assemble in the hall for an address by an eminent personality who visited the school that day. So we would show the assignment only the next day. So the day dawned fine for me. You are busy getting ready for school. You receive a WhatsApp message from your best friend saying that he or she is very upset over the fight you had yesterday and doesn't want to talk to you anymore. This distresses you as he or she sounds very firm. However, today is a big day at school with the 2 tests lined up. What will be your state of mind? How will you handle this situation? The situation will surely upset me. Anyway, he is my best friend, so I will hope that I could convince him that I feel sorry for what happened that day. Moreover, there are tests and all the students will be preparing for the test, including my friend. So I have some time to talk to him. First, I will talk about the test and his preparation, and I will give my wishes to him for his performance in the test. He may not respond to me, but I will not get hurt because my only purpose is to talk him and ask his pardon if needed. I will wait for the test to be over and then I will meet him separately and ask his pardon and try to explain to him the bad mood I had been in when we had the fight. I am sure I will convince him. After all, slow and steady wins the race. Thank you.